Oh, that's the thing. He wakes up with a loose penis, unattached. It's just on the loose. It's just a loose penis. And he wakes up with that in his bed and he's like, maybe I should get therapy again. Is it considered bestiality if it's a dinosaur? That's the real question. Well, we had a bit of a heavier read last week, and so this week I was in the mood for something a bit lighter and sillier. I figured it was about time that we got into some more Bizarro. If you aren't familiar with the genre, in the most simplest form, it's basically just surreal, weird stuff. In total, we have 8 different stories we're going to look at today. Now, the first one is my favorite, and I know I should probably save my favorite for the end, but my channel, my rules. I don't care. I want to talk about this. We're going to start off with The Honkening by Cherry Blaze. I saw this perfection of a cover, this perfection of a title, and I was just pumped. I felt it in my bones, I felt it in my blood, in my body, in my lungs. I felt it everywhere. The ominous title, the ominous title, The Honkening, sets the perfect tone. I was ready. My mind and my body were ready. But then do you see the little I I didn't read that yet. Now, back to business. So, our story starts off with a man named Max Fuller, and he's a dude who does construction. They are building a resort on top of a patch of wildlife. So, they're at the point in the project where they're blowing stuff up to get rid of it. He demolishes part of a reservoir that should be protected. It should be a protected portion of the wildlife. Not exactly an accident because he wasn't trying super hard not to do it, but it wasn't like he was going out of his way like, oh, this reservoir. You know, it just sort of happened and whatever. But when he goes down there and he sees there were actually a pretty substantial group of geese that were living there, and he's killed some of them, then he feels bad. Once he realizes what he's done, he's decided he's going to stop the demolition. They're going to have to make new plans. He doesn't want to intrude upon this lake any further. However, he has already angered the beast. It is too late for regrets. And so the geese will have their payback. And they start with Max, but they don't stop there. They're like, you know what? All of you people who live in this town will pay. I don't know how many of you live in a place where there are a lot of geese. There are a lot of geese where I live. Even a normal goose in real life is terrifying. They will chase you. Honestly, this isn't even that far-fetched, to be real with you, because real geese are the thing of horror stories. So after Max gets taken out, we pivot to his brother, Breck Fuller, and his friends, who are these 3 women, Jassy, Dora, and Sage, who are all members of an all-female band called the Giggling Snuff Bunnies. We are looking as the geese, in a fury of bloodlust, take over this entire town, attacking everybody, killing the streets are flooded with blood and goose poop. Chaos and anarchy everywhere. And so we are following these people as they are trying to survive the purge of the geese. The visual of bloody webbed footprints lining the streets. And just the haunting chorus of the honking, This was exactly what I was looking for. It's gory and it's weird, but it's silly and lighthearted. When you're pairing Bizarro with horror, sometimes in that process, it seems like they pull away from the silliness a bit for the sake of the horror, but I really strongly prefer my Bizarro to not just be weird. I really do like it to lean into the absurdity in a funny way. That's how I get the most out of it. So to use horror elements like gore so that you don't have to have such a serious tone, it worked really well and I really liked it. Okay, next up, we have a collection of 2 stories from the same author. Is it a collection if it's only 2? Pairing? This book is called The Innsmouth Porno VHS by Adolf Lovecraft. That is the name. I guess I shouldn't assume, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that that's probably not their real name. And honestly, hell of a choice. In this, there are 2 stories. The first one is the title of the book. So our plot of this turns out that there's this weird thing that has occurred where there was a morning sickness pill that pharmaceutical companies were selling that had unanticipated side effects. And this side effect is basically that the children were born with fish heads. To varying degrees. How? You don't get to know how, but the point is these people have lived long enough that they're able to perform in adult films. This is a man who's friends with a guy named Mike who shows him some adult films starring women who have fish heads. Just the heads. They still have human they still have human bodies. Again, it's to varying degrees of severity, so some of these people can still talk and some can't. Some can kind of make noises. It's just a bit of a crapshoot. And so Mike is showing our main character, I don't think it ever says what his name is, just, you know, our dude, with the intention of it being weird, which successful in that. But our guy is also actually aroused by what he is seeing. And so he takes some steps to experience something similar to what he saw on the tape in real life. This is, you know, it's weird. Honestly, it's kind of one of those things where it's not exactly body horror, but it kind of is just because the visual of it is very uncomfy. It's one of those ones where you read it and you're just like, that was fucked up. That was real fucked up, my guy. And then it's over. The second story is called Brown Shower Apocalypse. This is pretty, it's not pretty. There's something weird going on. People believe it to be the apocalypse because in random places, groups of people will suffer something real weird. So there's a town in France where the skin of all of the inhabitants is just melting off. Is this specific thing happening elsewhere? No, it's just these people who have no connection other than where they live. In other places, there's like some weird critter, an eyeball the size of a bus with tentacles and teeth, crawled out of the sea in Shanghai. All around the world, there's just weird shit going on. We have Frank. Frank is a simple man. He just wants to hire a prostitute to poop on him. And so he tries to do that, and the prostitute, Rachel, is like, you know, there's so much crazy stuff happening in the world. Just like real life, there's always weird things happening, and the vast majority of it is stuff that you can't do anything about. What are you gonna do about the tentacled eyeball in Shanghai? Not a goddamn thing, are you? So what do you have to keep living, right? And you're just waiting for whatever weird thing is gonna happen to your people in your town. Any day could be his last. And so that is how he's choosing to spend it, as is Rachel. I feel like there actually is something here, not necessarily that the author intended for this to be deep and meaningful. But I do think that there is something there in regards to the way that the world is just filled with so much insanity. You just kind of have to go about your day. And it can feel weird sometimes, but what are you going to do about the eyeball with the tentacles and the teeth? Like, there's nothing you can do about that. So that one was gross. So this one, the by Mr. Deadman. Now apparently this my husband told me that this is some sort of 4chan thing, which I've obviously heard of, but it's not a website that I ever frequented. So I don't know if Mr. Deadman is if that's like a username or if this is just like a fake, like, I don't know. I mean, hell, it could be his real name for all I know. It's sort of treated like a Bloody Mary thing where this little boy gets taunted and bullied into summoning the... He does not accomplish this by simply stating his name in the mirror. He does need to wait for his parents to go to bed and then drink a pumpkin spice cold brew in the mirror. And that seems like something that could very easily accidentally be summoned. Maybe that's the point. But so this boy, I don't know how old he is. He was on the bus with other kids, and the way they were talking to each other and whatnot, you get the vibe that he's a little bit younger. So he tries to do this and drinks the pumpkin spice cold brew in front of the mirror and then does in fact see, and he gets scared. Understandably so. His father is getting increasingly pissed off. He'll freak out and scream and try to run away, make a ruckus. The dad wakes up. Of course, the father does not believe that there's a in the house, and what does that even mean? But he is getting increasingly angry to the point that he is just spanking the shit out of his kid because he's so mad that he keeps waking him up. And it's this constant back and forth of the dad getting mad and punishing the kid and then leaving, and then he comes back, and then the kid freaks out and rinse and repeat. It's not as dark as you would think based off of the title, the premise, the character, but it's kind of ironic that despite the fact that there is interactions, the kid is terrified of the bear, but the only one who actually physically hurts him in this story at all is his father. And so there does seem to me to be a sort of irony there, that he's afraid of the monster and so he keeps running to his dad, but the only one who's actually hurting him is his dad. Next up, let's break into our anthology book. This is called Anthology of Bizarro, Volume 1. I have 3 different stories from this collection. First up, we have The Pimple on Silverman's Ass by Ken Goldman. Is about a man named Howard Silverman who is an English teacher who has a pimple on his ass, and it's growing at a tremendous rate, very quickly and very large, and it's causing him quite a bit of discomfort to the point where he ends up going to the doctor because it's seeming more like a cyst or something. It's very large. He does that, they lance it, and so he feels better at first, and so this just seems like a medical story. He goes home and it's like he feels better than he did before, but his butt still hurts. You know, like he's got like this big bandage on it and stuff. And so it turns out that the pimple isn't exactly a pimple. What it is not only something that can commune with Howard, it also has an Australian accent, which I can only assume is a reference to it being down under. It's like mean to him. It talks to him and it insults him and tells him that you're the real blemish, Howard. It's like bullying. Sometimes with short stories, even if they seem fast-paced, sometimes it's a fast pace that ultimately doesn't lead anywhere. This one had a very dark, satisfying ending, but it's very open-ended, but it does feel like there's some sort of conclusion that it comes to. We have Willy Wanker's Chocolate Dick Factory by Ryan Woods. This is about an adult film actress named Felicity Flaps. And she is offered this gang bang with a bunch of little people. That's not the word that he uses in the book. It's Willy Wanker in the Chocolate Factory. So her co-star, Willy Wanker, also known as Johnny Deep. And then there's going to be a gangbang with a group of little people. She will also be engaging with some phallic chocolate. Here's the thing. This production looks like it's gonna be real big in the adult film industry, and her nemesis, Jennifer Juggs, is very upset that Felicity Flaps got this part. And so she sets up this thing where she's like, I'm going to sabotage her. I'm going to ruin her life. I hate her because I'm a nemesis and that's what I do. Felicity still stars in the film. After that, she's supposed to star in Scatwoman, the Gaped Crusader, and her role in that ends up suffering due to certain things that Jennifer Juggs has pulled off. Is she going to get back at Jennifer Juggs, and is Jennifer going to get her comeuppance, or is Felicity down for the count? Who's to say? You'll have to read it to find out. Is it alliteration with the fuffles and the judges? Where it's like the same letter? I think so. I'm just a sucker for that. I don't know why. It's just a little detail that makes me feel whimsy. The little bit of horror elements, the gore and stuff, with just the absurdity and the smut, and it's really well balanced between all these different things so that it's interesting and fun. And the last one from this anthology that I read is called Somnambulist. I think I had it that time. Somnambulist Cannibal by Garvan Giltinan. So when I looked at this title, I knew I had seen that word before, but I did not remember what it meant. Somnambulism means sleepwalking. So this is a sleepwalking cannibal. It's about a guy named Colin who sleepwalks and is a cannibal. And when he does that, though, he wakes up. It's not like he doesn't know. He knows. He'll wake up with leftover body parts in the bed with him, and he'll still eat them after he wakes up, too. So it's not like he's none the wiser, but he's just kind of going with it. And then we also have these two detectives, Detective Wart and Detective Morris Cuddy. This is all taking place in Ireland, which doesn't seem to have any impact on any of the events that follow, but that's where it's taking place. It's basically a situation where the detectives are on a crime scene. They see parts of a body, what's remaining of a body, and then we'll cut to Colin with the portion of the body that he has, and then detectives, crime scene, and it's kind of going back and forth that way as they are trying to obviously identify who does this. Colin has a cat named Gobdaw. It's a hairless cat, as it should be. He talks to his cat. It seems as though the cat talks back to him, and they have a totally normal, not weird at all relationship. This had a lot of moments of humor that I appreciated. The author will admit, he'll tell us something, as the reader will be informed of something that has taken place, and then the author will immediately admit that he just lied and that actually isn't what happened in the story. I appreciate his honesty, even if it's delayed. I did enjoy Gobdaw the cat. I would like to hear more about him in particular. Like, I'm curious if he has more adventures. And last up, we are actually repeating the first author, Jerry Blaze, with Attack of the Were-Muff. Now, I normally wouldn't repeat an author more than once with 2 standalones in a video like this, but I liked the honkening so much that I saw this, and to be honest, I wasn't quite as taken just with the title of this one as I was with the other one. But then I read the description, and then I was on board. This is about a velociraptor PI who wears a trench coat and a fedora. His name is Wallace K. Langstein. Is that an I again? Wallace K. Langstoni. His latest case involves confirming that this man's wife is cheating on him, which she is. So he calls his client and tells him what's up, and he's like, hey, I can bring the proof if you're ready to pay up. And he's like, yes. And so he is going to go to the client's office to finish up their arrangement, their contract, if you will. And when he goes there, everyone is dead. These are just people. I think that that's important to note, that the PI is a velociraptor, but the rest of these people are just people. So he knows that it's going to look real sketch if the police come to this bloodbath and the velociraptor's there. So he's like, I gotta get out of here. He runs into this woman named Lorelei, and they kind of band together in the chaos of what's happening, and she has a secret. The story kind of pivots and becomes more about the relationship between Wallace and Lorelei, the cross-species intimate relationship betwixt them. It turns out that there does come a point in your life where you need to be honest and really ask yourself the question, am I just reading something silly, or am I reading straight up bestiality? And you have to ask yourself that. Maybe you don't, but I did. And I didn't know. Wallace has so many enemies. He has beef with the albino mafia. He has beef with some pirates. There's a lot going on. And if you're wondering about the Were-Muff from the title, I will explain to you that it is like a werewolf, but rather a monster created from overgrown and bloodthirsty pubic hair. It's funny though, because it's like Lorelei, everything that happens with the mafia, with the pirates, everything. She kind of saves Wallace in a lot of ways. But then in the end, you're almost kind of like, did she though? And there could be something there with that. I think the thing with this, I didn't like this one as much as I liked the Honkening. I can't. Any situation where you're using randomness as a source of humor, it can be very effective to have certain things just kind of coming out of left field, but it can't be overdone. The more you do that, the less funny it gets each time. So for me, there was almost just a little bit too much of that in this one versus the Honkening, where you have a very silly premise, but outside of the silly premise, people are behaving in a relatively normal way, if that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't dislike it. It's fun and weird, but it didn't work for me quite as well as the other story did. A little foray into some sillier stuff before we get back into the hardcore horror, you know. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And maybe I'll see you the next time around. Bye. Well, where does the fish part come? Like, how, like, it, you know, is there DNA in the morning? Like, that was, like, oh, this, if you consume something with some type of, like, how? This one was very weird. I spit. That's kind of the weird thing about those sorts of games like Bloody Mary. Either you're going to be disappointed that she didn't show up, or she's gonna show up and there's no upside to her actually showing up.